the greatest hockey player the world has ever seen, right? He's from Canada. He was actually a small guy, not very athletic. What made him so great, he skated where the puck was going to be. He used to say, a good player goes to where the puck is, a great player plays to where the puck is going to be. He actually had over 1,900 assists, 900 goals scored, 2,800 points, over 1,000 more than the next highest player. He had 4 championships and 9 MVPs in his playing career. So he was a visionary. Autoliv's a visionary. So that leads us into why we're here today. So we are Team Park City. I'm Blake Stagg. We have Dallin over here, as well as Amanda Skinner, Landon Swenson. And so our game plan for today, we are going to introduce Autoliv, kind of go over the problem, look at some of the options. As far as that, the analysis, the recommendations, how we're going to execute those, and then wrap it up into the conclusion. So Autoliv has it's in over 27 countries, has over 70,000 employees, and as you can see from the map, it's worldwide. Every year they save 30,000 lives. That's just the low end. I'm sure it's 10 times that much. And they supply to over 100 different car brands. So some of the core competencies at Autoliv are they're very agile. Very agile. They're very good at innovating. They have many different patents and protections that they come out with every year that allows them to be one of the industry leader, basically. They practice operating excellence as well as they're very transparent. But their goal, strategy is to be the leading supplier of safety systems for the present car, but also the future car. So Ryan has a problem right now. He needs to decide how he can fulfill Nissan's expectations, lowering their shipping and logistics costs, and while also strengthening their relationships for future endeavors into the new world.
So we want to look through a couple of options that were presented throughout the case and what we wanted to look at, what we did our analysis on. So the first option we have is direct to the fulfillment center. Essentially what that does is that allows Nissan to come to Autoliv and pick up. We already have a lot of our big customers who come and do that currently. The second one would be the cross dock, which is Autoliv is shipping to MPS in the Olive Branch. There we then break down and then distribute off into the different manufacturing facilities. And that's currently how we're doing business with Nissan right now. And the last one will be dual. Dual will be Nissan picks up the LTs of the curtain airbags at the Ogden facility, and Autoliv will continue to ship the driver-passenger airbags down to MPS Olive Branch. So this will allow us to kind of mimic what Honda is currently doing with us, and that's really where Nissan has kind of set their benchmark. They know that that's where we're at, and those are why they're shooting for these targets to get us there. So let's look at the cost savings really quick. As you look at the cost, direct fulfillment system will actually increase the cost, and that'll just be at the initial startup, because essentially they'll be paying for the totes that we are now supplying. They'll then be responsible for those totes as they take over that entire line of transit. The cross dock where we're currently at is at 5,992,000, some change. And as you can see, as we move to a dual fulfillment system, we would actually have a savings of a little over $1 million. And so with that, what kind of perspective does that put us in for Autoliv? Okay? And so what happens is if we chose to go to the dual fulfillment system, like we explained, is that Nissan would come and pick up at our facilities and we'd still be delivering down to MPS. Well, what that would do is eliminate our ability to build and fill our full truckloads that we're currently distributing down to MPS. It would cause a very big disruption for us and increase our expenses that we're currently paying for. So we want to look at our relationship with Nissan. Where are we at? How are we playing with them right now? So as we look into the company comparison with Nissan, so as you can see, we have a lot of things that are in common. We're both innovative. Continuous improvement is high on both of our scales, agility, lean practices, but relationships. we want to look at where does Nissan play right now in the relationships with their suppliers. So in building that relationship, it's going to be a collaborative relationship. Going forward, as we know, the innovation in the market is going to be working very close with these automobile companies, our OEM companies. So what we'd be looking for is our cooperative arrangement in which two or more parties would jointly work towards a common goal. And why? Why is that? To innovate, increase profits, and save lives. So both Nissan or any of our OEMs, we all have the same goals in saving people's lives and getting into these collaborative joint ventures. The who? So Autoliv, OEMs, suppliers. So we're not only just doing this with Nissan, we're looking at our other companies that we're working with, Honda, GM, Ford, and the how. To bring transparency, sharing resources, and sharing responsibilities. So buyer-supplier trust defined. So it's important that we build that trust with going into that collaborative relationship with Nissan. So what we did is we looked at the relationship working index. These 5 criteria is what we graded Nissan and the rest of our suppliers on. As you can see, Nissan is actually grading at the very worst of all of our competitors that we could actually go into a joint venture with. And so we want to make sure that with our relationship, if we were willing to take upon this risk of going with that, giving them their discount, is it setting up for risk, knowing how they're treating us as currently as a supplier. So with the customer probability analysis, knowing that Nissan is not doing very well with their supplier relationships right now, we have 3 options. We can either continue to collaborate, we can either raise the prices or fire Nissan. Obviously, we're not going to fire Nissan as a customer. With their sales of $3 billion with us, that's just not logical. It doesn't make sense. Raising prices obviously isn't going to go into the right direction. But how do we continue that collaborative relationship without giving them that cost break? How can we do this? Where are we going to go? We feel that changing their perspective and helping them understand where we can go and how we can better fulfill as a collaborative partnership, we would give them that cost saving. So managing their expectation of looking at it strictly as a transactional relationship and more focusing on how to become a collaborative partner. And we feel that going into the future and looking at innovation that way is going to present us those options.
So with this collaboration, obviously, what are the benefits? What are we reaping from this collaboration? The fruits of trust and collaborating with Nissan, but also all of our other suppliers or our other customers. So currently, we have developed a pedestrian protection airbag with Volvo, a night vision system with BMW, and a front position side-looking radar with Daimler. So what does this mean for Autoliv? Obviously, we're innovators, and obviously we want to collaborate with customers who are innovators as well. And this is the future of the auto industry. So we need to have forward thinking. So currently, this right here in the blue, this is the passive safety. So this is what we're currently producing. Front and steering wheel airbags, our current airbags. But as you can see here, there is a huge growth in the active safety features. So active safety is, and basically the technology that's going to minimize the damages from a collision. So that's your anti-lock braking system, your intelligent speed system that's on, our dashes. As you can see, there's huge growth there for innovation, and that's where obviously the car industry is heading. The passive, your seat belts that we do, airbags, and all that other things. So how does this transition into where Autoliv wants to go?
So in order for Autoliv as a company to skate to where the puck's going so we can ultimately score and get more market share, is that we're going to work on factory automation. So by automating these processes, we can lower our costs, we can increase our capacity, our overall capacity, as well as decrease our overall overhead, along with reaching more of our target goals. And so some of those goals being that we want to get closer to 0 defects and 0 waste, as well as the other one. And so some of the benefits of being automated is that 2 machines, for every 2 machines, it equals the capacity of what 12 workers would produce. As well as, because we're reducing these costs, because we pay for the initial machine, we're able to reduce our costs by taking that directly out of our taxable income because of the tax incentives and tax breaks. And so some of the barriers though, however, is that we have to get this equipment. We can either build it like we've previously done, or we have to buy it from somebody else, as well as the time to get it. And so some of the ways that we can mitigate these risks or get rid of these barriers is from our bridges of collaborating with our other departments, such as Tremont and Brigham City, which are already between 75 and 90% automated facilities, as well as buying or renting machinery to start up our process. And so the whole reason we want to automate is so that we can get into this active safety, so that we can reach more of this growing market and hit more of that potential profits. And so the main thing we're going to start with automation is our driver and passenger airbags, which are our smallest and simpler airbags to make. And so by doing that, because of the autonomous vehicles and where the market is going, people aren't going to be needing to holding onto the steering wheel and having to sit upright in a location, having an airbag push on their knees, and so they can hit them correctly and not kill the person. But whereas the autonomous vehicles, we don't know how we're going to be seated. And so we want to revolutionize our curtain airbags, and we're going to be able to do that with the added capacity we have on our floor, as well as adding into our R&D. And so going into R&D, we're going to work on our new technologies, these new emerging active safety programs that we want to implement, which is such as a reusable airbag. If we get too close to a pedestrian or a bike, and all of a sudden our airbags go off, well, great, now we have to replace the whole vehicle. That's kind of annoying. So we want a reusable airbag that'll just kind of go back in as if it was like a cartoon, and we can continue to reuse it, as well as on the outside of the airbag. And so what is our kind of timeline so that we can actually get to these goals and get to ultimately where the puck's at? So today, we're going to start collaborating with Nissan. We're going to say, hey, this is what actually we're going to do. You know, we're not going to cave necessarily. 2 months from now, we're going to start re-engineering and redesigning our processes to begin automation in 6 months. As well as in 9 months after that, we're going to focus on these emerging technologies as the active safety so that we can continue to reach that market share and keep up with the growth ultimately. And then a year from now, we're going to evaluate the improvements that we've done. We're going to go back and kind of Kaizen burst the entire system, as we do because we're Autoliv. We like to innovate. And we're going to look at our other customers. We're going to continue to work with them and improve our processes and ultimately help them.
So obviously with change, there's going to be some headaches, some mitigation that we are going to experience. As Autoliv, we do have a corporate social responsibility. So with this new automation, we are producing safer vehicles. What is more important to Autoliv than being safe? Nothing. As far as automating, we're going to be doing less waste, obviously. So the machines are going to be able to work around the clock, and with less errors, less defects, we're going to be throwing away less defective products. As far as the profit goes, there are going to be some cost savings in that. Like Dallin expressed earlier, 2 machines can hold the capacity of 12 workers. So there's going to be some labor cost savings there. So how we mitigate these risks, first, let's just touch on some of the risks that we think that is important to go over. So first, the machinery lead time. Obviously, that's going to be the engineering. We're going to have to get the machines in there. We build all of our own machines now currently. We have to get the machines in there. How are we going to mitigate that risk? How are we going to mitigate the cost risk? Do we have enough money for the R&D? How are we going to get our employee buy-in? And obviously, we're going to be experiencing some growing pains like every company does. You just go to the.
Just carry on communication. Just off that.
Okay. So how are we going to mitigate these risks? Obviously, so with the machinery downtime, we are going to make sure that we are scheduling this downtime during our downtime, so that we're not losing any production time. As far as the costs, and Dallin mentioned, there are going to be some tax savings on turning automation. As far as employee buy-in, obviously we need to have upper level management buy-in. We're going to do this by providing the right training, getting the right people in place at the right time. And how we mitigate these growing pains is we just have to address them as we go. we are a Kaizen company, and so with that being is we will always fix a problem as soon as it comes up, and that's how we plan to mitigate the growing pains. So, like we mentioned earlier, is a great player skates to where the puck is going to be. And Autoliv is a great player, and we have tons of room and tons of market share to gain through these new, through going automated. So currently, with Nissan, we're still going to collaborate. We still want to cultivate that relationship, obviously. But they're always going to be hounding us for cost savings. It's just what Nissan does. That's just their culture, and we're okay with that because we are their supplier. So for right now, and this year, we're going to say no. We're not going to give them those cost savings. We're going to have them stick to the cross-docking that we have in place for them, that system. And we're going to use those savings to further our R&D, to further ourselves in a better position for this automation process. And then we are going to continue to innovate. Autoliv has always been an innovating company, so that's not going to change. Our culture is not going to change. We're still going to Kaizen. We're still going to fix the problems as we go. But with these new technologies, we feel that this is what's going to take Autoliv to the next level in being competitive in the market. Any questions?
Thank you, sorry. That was good. Sorry.
That started off that way, might as well finish it that way, right?
Full circle.
Hopefully we'll get it working, we'll give you guys your 10 minutes to deliberate this stuff out. So,
Wait, is that
no questions?
Yeah.
That's what I said.
So you guys addressed social responsibility is something that Autoliv well, that's a big thing for Autoliv. You addressed that in your presentation. So if you're going to full automation, what about the social responsibility of all the jobs lost? And there's a lot of people that work at Autoliv, and that's a huge impact to the Ogden economy.
Right.
Nothing else.
And that's a great question. And so that's what a lot of the concern is now is, oh, great, the robot's going to take my job. What am I going to be? I'm going to be jobless. And ultimately, I'm not going to have money for my family. But really, these machines are co-collaborative. So you can build these machines to actually work with humans, and so we can actually add jobs because of that. We can have jobs to maintain the machines, as well as to continually supply inventory for them. As well as, because we said that it's going to reduce the amount of cells that we're going to have, so we're going to increase our floor space. We're going to relocate those people to creating these new curtain airbags in our new systems, as well as putting them onto different lines that potentially might need help. Our red zone production lines, we can help them so they don't have to do as much overtime, as well as reallocate them to where we see fit.
I liked your idea of farming Nissan. Just my experience. No, I'm just kidding. Every OEM has their quirks, so there's always something that it's. That's an interesting take. I agree.
So how did you analyze the relationship, like comparative to all the other ones?
Yeah, where did you guys get that information? I didn't miss what you were saying while I was writing.
The information as far
The
as
supplier
Nissan.
relationship.
Nissan
data, like,
sucks,
about all
everything
the-
else.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So with that, we just scanned the internet and found recently some of the supplier rankings, how suppliers are ranking their current buyers, and Nissan by far has been going down the past 5 or 6 years, just based on how they're treating their suppliers. And
We really had to get outside of the case to do this, and we felt like it was beneficial for us to do that, just so that we could have more knowledge about the Autoliv and Nissan relationship. But then also too, it is important to know how your customers are treating other customers and suppliers, because Autoliv is all about relationships. That's very, very important, we felt.
And we feel that, because continually throughout the case, we talked about how Nissan has always asked us for the past 3 years for this exact same price reduction. We've always come back with the same explanation, and so we really need to change their focus. We need to change their perspective. We need to change their expectation. So that's kind of what our direction was, to manage their expectation in a different light. To instead of focus on just that cost savings, if that's what they're truly focused on, and as you saw, the data supports that, to really look at how can we become innovative with them. They launched their taxi over in Japan just recently, so they are on board with the autonomous vehicles. And so what role do we play? Obviously we don't want to run out of jobs and stuff like that and for serving those jobs. So we want to make sure that we are just as innovative as Autoliv to not only just Nissan, but to all of our companies.
The automation, so there's cost to automation, right? Not just implementing, but sustaining and maintaining all that. Have you guys looked at that, or any numbers for that to analyze and compare it
That
to?
would be on the appendix slide.
Well, I can try again.
Okay.
But also with that,
Yeah.
we currently create, or Autoliv currently creates their own machinery, right?
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Yeah,
Say
so
about that.
what I was gonna say was that the US Department of Commerce has estimated that overall, the US is gonna have a cost savings of $40.1 billion just this year alone. And so with the implementation of automation, that being in savings of time and cost, because I'm not having to pay for this machine to be sick. Obviously, I maintain it to keep it running, but I'm not paying it benefits. I'm not. It's working with the lights off, and it can work in a climate that might be unfit for any of us to work in. And so ultimately, I can cut a lot of the overhead costs through that. And then the other upside of that, again, is going back to the zero defects. They work perfectly all the time. If they don't, I go in, program it, change it, and I'm done. That's it, and it's going to continue to perform to spec as I need it. And again, if we see that it's not, we can again reprogram, and it's done.
To add to that, so also we already have automation in 2 facilities that are very close to us. So Tremont, which is about 90% already automated, and 70 to 80% up in Brigham City. So that automation technology is already readily available to us. That'll help us to monitor and really budget those costs. That was one of our big things, to make sure that we're allocating the correct budgets as we implement these through our facility. But really relying upon what Tremont and Brigham City already has available. There may be a lot of technology that we simply just haven't looked at to bring down and just put it right in play. Plug and play and let us do it.
We're gonna get you those numbers. Email them to you, drop them off at your house, you're gonna get them.
You still got 4 minutes of questions, so.
So you guys said that, and you may not even know this, but you said that by automating, we can actually increase the number of production cells we have on our board.
Right. And so.
Right, twofold.
So because the machines have the capability of creating essentially what 12 workers would create, we can take those, if the direct and passenger airbags are one person's cells, we can eliminate to where the machine robots are only occupying these 2, right? And so we'll eliminate those other 10. So then those other 10 cells that are taken up by those other machines that are creating those, we can allocate to, okay, now we eliminate these machines, and we're building new curtain airbags, and we're working on our new emerging technologies.
And that's really what Autoliv is looking for. Right now, we already discussed that you guys are running at max capacity, which Jakarta not only just falling off the tank, but actually going bankrupt is bringing a lot of capacity constraints to you guys. So how are we going to make these changes? What are we going to need to do? And that's why we thought that innovating, and eventually, like we talked about with ergonomics, that driver and passenger airbag ergonomic is going to be going away here soon. So by really directing and putting automation to those things to be able to downsize that, creating and opening up capacity for those new curtain innovations and what we're looking to do. To answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of information that you guys probably don't have as far as automation goes. Every program we build is unique, so you can't necessarily take one machine and build the same program. And so where you're saying like it replaces 12 workers, yeah, it might, but you might actually need 4 different robots to replace those 12 workers.
Right. And that again depends on how fast that machine can work. If it's able to produce quicker, and we use those 2 machines, and they create all of our driver and passenger airbags in one day that we would need, then it's like, oh, we're perfect.
See, that's what I'm saying.
And that's,
so each vehicle, the driver airbag is going to be different.
right.
And so that's like, you can't necessarily put them all in the same machine.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying, like, it's information you guys wouldn't necessarily have.
There's gonna be change out, she's saying change over, like,
Right.
they do at the factory currently.
Yeah,
There's
but
change
one of the
over.
other things is that they have these smart robots that you can program multiple programs into. So let's say Nissan driver airbags, you're doing these ones, and then next hour we have a changeover. We put in the new airbags for Ford, and and then say button 1, forward, and they're doing forward to drive airbags now. So your changeover is a lot quicker as well. Oh, yeah, cost savings, here we go. And so, so I lied. I said this year, didn't I? I meant to say by 2025, starting from 2013. And so with the human-robot interaction, these are our cost savings of trying to work together and improve our processes with the human, I shouldn't say the human, with the employee saying, okay, machine, yes, you're doing this correct. Actually, engineers, we need to have it do this. We need to work on it, doing it this way, and that'll ultimately reduce some of our unstructured environments. So where we're kind of unsure of what to do or what we need to do, as well as our low-cost characteristics like I've explained. We're not paying it benefits. It works all night if we needed to, and essentially we don't have to talk to it. We can program it and be nice to it, but we don't have to necessarily do much else with it. As well as our modularity and modeling and simulation. We can program them and say do X, Y, and Z, and it'll do it. As well as our intuitive interfaces. Because they're programmable, we can have multiple people work on them as we need. We can have, you know, engineer 1, 2, 3, and 4. All 4 of us can know, okay, this machine is great. I'm going to program Ford airbags. He can do Nissan, and we can really work well with them. So it's not going to be too much of a hassle, other than like what we said, just acquiring the machine.
And you're still gonna need people to address your concern. It's not eliminating them completely, obviously, but, you know, we'll always still need people to run businesses.
All right, so we're gonna have to wrap it up then. Give you guys some time now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for hearing our presentation.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks.